Let's be real and let's talk about the reality. Sometimes you can find yourself just living in kind of automatic life without really paying attention what's happening in your brain, what's happening in your body. Things just happen and you just move on with life. So some of us even go ahead and label as too sensitive. I'm too sensitive, I can't handle this, and that. So when we talk about these things that sometimes remind us of events that happened in the past, let's say you walk into a room and then all of a sudden you feel like waves all over your body, and then you don't know why you are feeling this way, or you smell a perfume and then it reminds you of a memory that you may not even remember. Or you find sometimes someone says something to you and that statement really hurts you. It really gets to you to the point you start overthinking many other things and many other events that could follow that. So today we are going to discuss what childhood trauma triggers all about, what happens in the brain, and how we can also be able to manage them. So if you haven't checked previous videos on trauma, just go and check and then come back to this. My name is Daki Duba. I'm counseling psychologist. This is Drive with Daki. This is where we go through a personal kind of journey and we move from that survival mode to thriving, because if we cannot heal from these things that really happen in our lives, and it's not really our fault, but then as an adult it's your responsibility, because we cannot just continue hurting other people, hurting ourselves. But the moment we heal, we give ourselves a chance to thrive and to really even be very productive in whatever we do and to also grow. So what is trigger? Sometimes we say, I'm feeling triggered, or you're triggering me. But when we say these things, what do we mean? Triggers can be anything. It can be a touch, smell, or a memory that you remember, and that could just be just a thought. You just think about something and then it's a memory that happened. Let's say a traumatic event happened in the past and then you think about something, and then whatever you're thinking about reminds you of that event. Or it can just be anything, and it's different from person to person, because whatever happened to someone else, even if the accidents are the same or maybe the events were the same, it doesn't mean we all have the same triggers, because we have different brains, we go through life differently, and our perception and how we perceive things could be different. That means we may not be able to be triggered by the same thing. What happens in the brain when you are triggered? You see how sometimes you say something or you do something that later on you ask yourself, am I really the one who has been doing all this? Because at that time you are not thinking and you find yourself just doing things automatically. So this is the reason, and this is what happens in the brain. Now let's imagine the whole brain as a car which is on the road moving, and then this section of your brain, which is the prefrontal cortex, is the driver. The function of the prefrontal cortex is mostly the executive functions and those high level cognitive processing like planning, making decisions, or basically working memory. Now this is the driver. And then we have this section of our brain, we call it the amygdala, which is the primitive brain in this case. And the moment you are on a survival mode, the moment there is danger, this part takes over everything and it takes over the steering wheel. Now here the driver is not the one driving the car. So the moment the amygdala takes over, all the thinking and everything out of the window. So this is also the situation where you find yourself. In that situation, you are not thinking, you are just doing things, and most of the things you are doing is, in a way, you are trying to protect yourself. You are trying to, whether perceived or a real danger, you are trying to make sure you are safe. And this response is involuntary. At that moment, amygdala is already on fight or flight mode. And that is how you find yourself in a situation that later on, when you start thinking, you are like, am I the one who did all that? This response is involuntary. That's why when you are in a danger, you find yourself in fight or flight response. So basically, your amygdala is trying to protect you. And that's why at that time, that executive function is not really doing the work, because all the firing is towards the amygdala. How can you manage these triggers? And by the way, you are not alone. All of us human beings, as long as we are all going through life, we get dysregulated, we get triggered at some point. And the only difference is some people know how to regulate themselves while others don't. And that's why we are here. So number one, notice the triggers. If you cannot point it out, you may not be able to deal with it or understand. But the moment you realize that actually this is what I'm feeling, then you are able to pay attention to it and separate yourself from those triggers. You are not the trigger is the trigger. So it's not like I'm angry, it's I'm feeling anger flowing through my body. So separate yourself from the issue. The other thing is grounding yourself. Here is where you try to shift the focus from what is happening in the brain to just something else that can distract you. For instance, you are on call. Whatever the other person is saying is already triggering you. So before you say something or before you make a decision that you might regret later on, first of all, try to see whether you are able to go off the call, whether you can reschedule, or whether you are able to talk to this person about that topic later on. And if you are not able to do that, then the other better way is to try to, regulate yourself at that point. You can wash your hands at the time your brain is thinking about you washing your hands, let's say with cold water. Or you sit somewhere and then you kind of feel which part of your body is in touch with the ground, or you just try to even pinch yourself and feel what is happening where you are pinching, and many others. You can use many things to really distract yourself from that. Some people even eat something. You can bite something, and then at that time, you see your focus is shifting. The other thing is, don't judge your reaction. It's your body trying to protect you. And this is what your body has learned. Your nervous system knows exactly what it can do to protect you. So instead of judging your reaction and maybe feeling guilt about how you are responding to the situation, then try to see how best you can support yourself. And you can do this through butterfly hug. Like you can just hug yourself, and then you feel that hug at that point. Or you can even try to hug wall or even trees and see how that reaction goes, instead of sitting there and judging yourself. If you see clearly you may not be able to do this on your own, then it's completely okay for you to seek a professional support and allow someone else to help you through this. And to be real, we say therapy is expensive, but then what is more expensive than you having to pay for rehabilitation, for treating mental disorders, or losing your jobs because of triggers that you may not be able to contain? So sometimes it's completely okay for us to treat an issue from the root, instead of always having to find ourselves in kind of like a roller coaster, and we may not get the solution at the end of the day. So before you find yourself in many other distractions, how can you focus on solving the issue at the root cause? Today we are stopping at this. If this video has helped you in any way, please share with someone who might need it. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video.